This week I'll show you how to use an Indy filter with your studio strobes to get shallow depth of field in studio and overpower the sun outside the studio.
Adorama TV presents Digital Photography One-on-One, where we answer your questions. Here's your host, Mark Wallace.
Hi everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Digital Photography One-on-One. Well, this week we're going to talk a little bit more about neutral density filters, but this time specifically how to use them with studio strobes. And so to get things kicked off, let's take a look at this week's question from Lydia in Houston, Texas. Lydia asked, sometimes I want to shoot with a wide open aperture like f2.8 in my studio, but it seems like my strobes are just too powerful. Is there a way to fix this? Well, Lydia, that's a great question. In fact, a lot of people have written in on a similar topic saying that it seems like their studio strobes are just a little bit too powerful shooting in a small space, and they just can't get that really shallow depth of field look because there's just too much light coming out of there, and there's really nothing that you can do because maybe you've turned it all the way down and there's no more space. You can't get that light any farther back. So what do? Well, the solution for that is you can shoot with a neutral density filter. And it works great in the studio, and not only does it work great in the studio, but you can take that neutral density filter outside, and what you can do there is take all that ambient light, maybe shooting in the middle of the day, and take that way down, and then use that same really powerful studio strobe to overpower the sun and get some really interesting effects. So we're going to show you both of these. So let's go to the studio and first show you in the studio, and then we'll go outside, and I'll show you how you can overpower the sun. All right, I'm here in the studio, and this is LaShawn. She's going to be helping us out today. And let me talk to you about a very common problem that happens in the studio all the time. So for this setup, what I really want to do is I want to open up my aperture all the way so it's at 2.8, so I get really shallow depth of field, and so we get this really awesome portrait, but this background here just sort of falls slightly out of focus. Now the other thing I want to do is I want to use this very large softbox and bring it in pretty close so we have really nice soft light and rapid light fall off, according to the inverse square law. But the problem is I have a pretty beefy pack here. This is a 1200 watt second ProPhoto pack, and if I want to take the power down all the way, even if I do that, I have too much power. My light is going to be metering somewhere around f8. In fact, let me meter this really quickly, and it looks at exactly, it's dead on right at f8. And there's really not much I can do. This is all the way down as low as it can go. I can't take any more power out of that. What I could do is I could move this light back farther from LaShawn, but the problem is I'm changing the property of light, and so it's going to not look the same as I wanted. I want it to wrap around and have rapid fall off. By moving that light, it's going to mess all of that up. So what can I do? Well, I've got a trick right over here. Now on the front of my lens, I have this thing right here. This is, I'll take it off really quickly, this is a neutral density filter. And this one is a Hoya. It is an ND8. And what that means is it takes 3 stops of light out. So it's sort of like a fancy pair of sunglasses for my lens. And so it makes everything darker by 3 stops. Now what that means is here in the studio, if I get this on my lens here, as soon as I put that on there, that means if my light is metering at f8, it will actually, I'll need to open up my aperture to 2.8, which is a 3-stop difference to get a proper exposure. And that means I can take that shot that my meter to f8 at 2.8, and I get that nice shallow depth of field look. So let me take a couple pictures. So LaShawn, look right at me. There you go. Beautiful. Just like that. And you can see that indeed we have that really nice shallow depth of field look. We have very, very nice soft light on LaShawn, and it looks terrific. Even though this is at f8 with the neutral density filter, I can shoot at 2.8. Now the other thing that's interesting is you can stack neutral density filters. So if I had even a more powerful pack, like a 2400 watt second pack, I can do this at 1 stop, 2 stops, 3 stops. Then I can start stacking those. So I could go to 6 stops or 5 stops or all the way up to 9 stops if I wanted to. So I can do all kinds of things here in the studio by sort of fudging everything. Instead of taking the power down here, I can take the power down by just putting a neutral density filter on my camera. So let me take a few shots and I'll show you what these look like. All right, let let me show you another trick you can do with an Indy filter, and this time I have this Hoya. This is the Indy X400 that we used to take the cars off the freeway. I think that was last week's episode. This is a 9-stop Indy filter, so it really restricts the light. So I'm going to grab my lens hood here and put that back on there. Now what I want to do here is, it is bright, crazy sunlight in the middle of the day, and what we want to do is overpower the sun and use so much light from our flash that it looks like we're just shooting with nothing but a flash. Now as you can see, we've got this bright sunlight coming in, and on the opposite side over here you can see that shadow to her left. And what we're going to see is that with the light I have right here that's going to be hitting her, it's going to come this way. This is going to light up LaShawn, and we're going to get a shadow on this side, and this one is going to magically disappear because we're restricting so much light that the only thing we're really going to see is the light from the flash. So what I've done is I've already metered this. Now I metered this light at a crazy F64. It's extremely bright, and what I'm doing though is I'm using an Indy filter that's 9 stops less, and 9 stops down from F64 is 2.8. So if you can believe it, I'm shooting outside in this crazy light at f2.8. My shutter speed is my camera's sync speed. That's 160th of a second on the 5D Mark II. And I'm going to take some pictures, and it'll be really crazy what you see, because we're going to see nothing of this ambient light. All we're going to see is the light from the flash, even in this super bright sunlight. So you ready to get going?
Yes.
All right, let's shoot a few shots. I'll show you what this looks like. Now as you can see with those shots, exactly like I said, the shadow to LaShawn's left, it completely disappears, and all we see is this light that's coming from our strobe, and it's really cool. It's totally overpowering the ambient light. Now what we're going to do, LaShawn, I'll have you come over on this side. I'm just going to shoot a few shots of this scene over here. You can see we have this open parking lot here. We're going to shoot a few more shots to show you how I can use this same technique to totally drop out the background and just shoot this, and she'll actually be sort of on a black environment. Now what I can do is I can slow down my my shutter speed to get a little bit more of that ambient light, and I can play with this. But what I can basically do is totally control the light using this crazy Indy filter out here in this crazy bright sunlight. So let's shoot a few more. Well, you can see that you can get some really amazing effects just by using a couple different neutral density filters. A lot of people love using these for scenic photography, but few people use them in the studio or with studio strobes. And so I hope after seeing this video, you'll reconsider that, because you can really get some amazing results. Well, if you're like Lydia and you have a question about studio photography or digital photography, you can send those questions to me at askmark@adorama.com, or if you want to, you can just check out the Adorama Learning Center. There's all kinds of videos and articles and reviews of all kinds of gear and tips and tricks. So make sure you go over there and take a look at that. And don't forget to subscribe to our videos either on YouTube or in iTunes. And that way you won't miss a single episode. Well, thanks again for joining me, and I'll see you again next episode.
This episode is brought to you by Adorama TV. Visit the Adorama Learning Center, where you'll find photography tips and techniques, links to the gear used in this episode, and related videos. For all the latest photography, video, and computer gear, visit adorama.com. And the next time you're in New York City, visit our store, located on 18th Street between 5th and 6th Avenue.
This week I'll show you 2 tricks with an Oh, I shot all these in JPEG. Kidding.
Oh, I was like...
I'm kidding. Booyah!
Digital Photography One-on-One is written and produced by Snap Factory. For more information about our workshops, visit snapfactory.com.